So what you see in this video here is a LiDAR scan using this of the last time a DC-8 was in an air show at the US. What you're seeing here is probably about the closest you're ever going to get to actually being on another DC-8, because on November 14th, 2025, Samaritan's Purse retired their DC-8. So there's no more DC-8s in US service anymore. And if you're wondering what's so special about this video and what the heck is, LiDAR, this thing here, basically this is a device that sends out a bunch of laser pulses like all around it and creates a 3D point cloud of the object. Basically a low-res 3D model of real-world objects. Normally to make a 3D object, you actually have to go into like a program such as Blender and model everything. But with this, it's more like taking a video or a photo of an object, and this thing, along with the software with it, turns it into a 3D model. So you can kind of skip the whole modeling step, which is awesome. And if you're wondering how I got permission to scan this, it was all total luck. I was at the Dayton Air Show in 2025, and I was scanning a whole bunch of other aircraft to use whenever I tell stories about aircraft. That way I don't have to go buy 3D models. I can use real models of aircraft. And I think I was scanning right when the gates opened, so there weren't a whole bunch of people at the air show. Then one of the people at Samaritan's Purse saw this, scanner on top of a painter pole, like this crazy rig, and asked what it was. I wish I had some footage of me scanning the aircraft so you could see what this actually looks like in practice, but I'll put up some footage on the screen of me scanning some other object so you get an idea of what I'm actually doing. Just pretend there's an aircraft in the background instead of a building. So anyway, I told them I could make a 3D model of an aircraft just by walking around one. And much to my surprise, they asked if I wanted to scan their aircraft. I kind of figured they're just asking if I wanted to scan the outside, so I said yeah. But then they told me to follow them up the steps so I could scan the inside. That was a huge surprise. Then they asked me if there's anything they needed to do so I could scan the plane. And since LiDAR is sort of like taking a photo, anything the LiDAR scanner sees will show up in the 3D scan. So if I have people in front of me, that's going to pick up on the scan. And they were incredibly accommodating. They held up the people behind me on the tour so I could get a clean scan of the aircraft. And in exchange, I would give them a copy of the scan once I put it together. And since I shoot video for a living and tell stories about companies and organizations, I always need stuff called B-roll, which is basically the footage of what people are talking about. And a lot of times companies just don't have footage of what they're talking about. So I figured this would be a cool asset for them to have in the future if they ever talk about their DC-8 for a future video or something. So I entered through the rear of the aircraft, which is where all the passengers sit, then ducked through a little doorway into the cargo compartment. I scanned that and then exited through the front of the aircraft to the left, which is where the ramp next to the cockpit was. Once I exited the aircraft, I scanned the medical tents and then did a walk around of the entire aircraft. And after I got done with that, I was packing up to leave. And the person from Samaritan's Purse came back to me and asked if I wanted to scan the cockpit. Like, that was completely unexpected. So I jumped at the opportunity. Like, I couldn't believe they asked me that. And interestingly, LiDAR cameras don't actually need light since they're shooting out a laser beam, and a laser beam is its own light. But I did have this little action camera mounted to the front of the LiDAR scanner, much like this here. And I did that because even though this LiDAR scanner has its own cameras built into it, they're not as good as this action camera here. So the light helped out a ton for the live video I used to capture the aircraft, but the live video wasn't actually for video use per se. The live video I was capturing was to create another type of 3D model called a 3D Gaussian splat. If you've never heard of those before, you can basically take regular video of an object, run it through a program to extract a certain number of frames from the video, and then run it through another program to basically solve where the camera was in 3D space, and then export some point cloud, and then feed those files and the photos into another program, and it'll create a 3D object of what you just scanned, which is really cool. But for this project, I just turned the cockpit into a 3D model from the video. That way you can see the pilot controls and the engineer station in more detail than with the LiDAR scanner by itself. So that's the story how I got a scan of the last DC-8 flying in the United States. I want to thank Samaritan's Purse again for giving me the opportunity, and if anyone sees me at an air show with this thing on some crazy big painter pole and you want your aircraft scanned, just reach out. I'm happy to scan your aircraft for free and give you a copy. I think that's about all I got for this one, so thanks for watching if you stuck through with me to the end, and I'll catch you in the next one.